Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our third week of Survivor Stories for our Procurement with Purpose campaign to benefit ACS. I'm really excited. This is a special episode because we're here with our CEO, founder, and fearless leader, Anders Lilovic. Hi, Anders.
Hey Maya, how you doing?
I am good, and I'm really grateful that you are willing to jump on and talk with everyone about your experience. I don't think a lot of people actually know that you are a cancer survivor, so this month is really important to all of us. Um, our first question, if you're comfortable sharing, can you talk with us a little bit about what your diagnosis actually was?
Sure. So I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The specific type of lymphoma is a lymphoma called diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. And I was diagnosed in stage 4 with what they call bulky mass and bone marrow involvement, which means essentially the cancer had penetrated in, it actually, the cancer actually ate most of my hip, my right hip up, and it basically spread throughout my bone marrow as well. So yeah, not exactly a good time.
So yeah, that's a really serious diagnosis, and obviously in your case, it was pretty advanced as well. I'm wondering if you could share with us how old you were at the time of that diagnosis.
Yeah, I was diagnosed. I was just 20. I was almost 30 years old, so it's a little while ago now. And I'd been sick for some time, obviously, since I was diagnosed in stage 4. But I kept going to the doctor again and again, saying something is wrong. I had a hernia operation I didn't need, and a lot of other things before we actually found out that I had cancer at 29. And I was actually discovered by my ophthalmologist, believe that or not. So kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's a really unlikely way to come to that diagnosis, and unfortunate that it took so long and advanced. But you were also really young at the time of that diagnosis. Our third question is, how did you feel at the time? And I'm sure your age also, kind of played into that too. Can you talk a little bit about what that time in your life must have been like?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because I was getting progressively worse. Meaning, I had a broken hip. That's the first sign that I had. And then I started losing weight. I started having ringing in my ears. I started getting double vision, and it was all because the tumor load was basically, I had a tumor eating away on my right ear, right inner ear, and a tumor pushing on the back of my right optical nerve. And quite honestly, like I was a vegetable at that point. Like I was not really functioning all that well. But when I got diagnosed, it was kind of like I was very relieved actually because finally we knew what we were up against and what had to be done. And once I started chemotherapy, it was amazing because if I felt so much better just starting chemo and getting the tumor load reduced. And it's funny, after my first chemo treatment, my doctor asked me, "How do you feel?" I said, "I feel like $1 million." And he goes, "I've never heard that one before." But, comparatively speaking, it was good. And going through cancer, it's going to sound really funny, but, it's actually really simple. It's really easy because the doctors tell you what to do, what not to do, when to show up, and those kinds of things. So it was kind of like a paint by numbers type exercise, right? Because, whether the treatment would work or not, the doctors took the thinking out of it completely.
Yeah, that's really an incredible story and quite unique, just how it was discovered for you and really shocking to hear. I was going to say, I've never heard somebody say, after I started chemo, I felt great, but considering how advanced your symptoms were and how much of an impact that had on your daily functioning, that makes sense. You bring up, this paint by numbers kind of steps that you had to your road to recovery. And that is where ACS comes in. Obviously, we're supporting them this month, and they provide all sorts of things. They provide things like rides to appointments. They obviously donate to research, and they even do things like social support for cancer patients. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how we can also support people living with cancer and cancer diagnosis in our life, in addition to supporting ACS and maybe even volunteering with them.
Well, I think everybody's different. Um, so some people really get into talking about it or group meetings, and some people don't. And I think take your cues from whoever's in your life that has a cancer diagnosis and figure out what they want to do. Figure out what they would like to, how they would like to be treated. So unfortunately, after my diagnosis, they let me go from my job. And that was the worst thing for me because I needed something to take my mind off of what was going on. Like basically, once you do chemotherapy, certainly my chemotherapy is you do 1 day in the hospital and then they send you home for 3 weeks. And there's nothing like sitting there thinking about cancer for 3 weeks before you have to do it again. So for me, like that was not the best thing for me to not have work. Like, and the whole concept of dying a cancer patient wasn't really what I wanted to be remembered for, right? So I would say, offer your services, offer help, but be mindful of you may not understand the mindset of the person that you're dealing with, but be encouraging, be supportive. You know, everybody says I pray for you, which is very, very nice. But don't always assume that that's relevant for the people that you do that for. So it's very, very individual, and I would take my cues from the patient.
I really like that wisdom that it's unique to everyone. Obviously, we have a different survivor story every week this month, and although every one of you has dealt with, is living with, or has survived cancer, everybody's story has been so different, and everybody's answer to that question has been so different. So I think that's really, really good wisdom as to how to support those in our life. Obviously, Anders, our goal is to raise $5,000 this month. I believe that we can do it with our network. We encourage everyone to follow along on our journey and to support us any way they can. There are volunteer opportunities as well, lots of ways to support ACS. Is there anything else that you want to share, Anders, before we wrap up today?
I think the work that ACS does is tremendous, and we're very happy to support them. So thanks for everything that you guys do at ACS.
Absolutely. A big thank you from us here at Focal Point, and thank you, Anders.
Thank you, Mike.